In life, there are those lifelong debates that seem to make people tick and get the blood flowing. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Paper or plastic? Republican or Democrat? If you spent an extended amount of time in the Cincinnati region, you know that there's an age-old debate that has divided the city for generations. East Side or West Side? Vine Street literally divides the city into its east and west sides, and you seemingly need a passport to cross into enemy territory. With that being said, today we're going to settle that debate once and for all. After extensive research, it's been found that the combination of culinary creativity, the value placed on family and community, and the ability to refrain from sweating the small stuff while making the most of life's little pleasures do in fact make the West Side the best side. Now I know you're probably thinking to yourself, she's from the West Side. Of course she thinks the West Side is the best side. True. However, I do have concrete evidence to support my case. For example, look at any of the ways to know you're from Cincinnati lists or things to do while you're in Cincinnati. Without a doubt, food is a staple on each of these lists. Among the most heavily circulated of these lists is generated on BuzzFeed. It's an article there. There you may find a lot of disparities from list to list, but what you will find on each list repeatedly is that the most famous Cincinnati foods that we're known for, Skyline and La Rosa's, both come from the West Side. Skyline with its original location on Glenway, and La Rosa's with its original location on Boudinot. Westsiders aren't afraid to get a little messy, and the messier the better. Now, the real emphasis on food settles on gathering around the dinner table. Families on this side of town make getting together a priority. Sunday dinners aren't unheard of, nor are outings after church on Sundays to the likes of La Rosa's, Skyline, or Price Hill Chili. The Shop Local movement could have been started on the West Side. Several of our city's most successful businesses started on this side of town. And supporting locally owned businesses is simply a way of life here. In fact, several of the businesses lining the streets of the West Side are fourth generation or more family-owned businesses. Westsiders have no shame in being blue collar. Also on these Cincinnati lists are a vast selection of church festivals, fish fries, and high school football games every weekend where you run into numerous people you grew up with, went to school with. A brief glance at a calendar on the Catholic Telegraph's website, for example, shows a church festival every weekend throughout different West Side neighborhoods from May through September. And fish fries on most West Side neighborhoods on every Friday in the spring during Lent. High school football in Cincinnati rivals even that of Texas, due in large part to the success and achievements of West Side Catholic high schools. In fact, Elders Pitt has made national headlines on several occasions as a must-visit stadium for high school football. When people ask where you went to school, they mean high school, so they know which part of town you grew up in and who you may know in common. Westsiders are proud of their roots, bringing them back again and again and again. Essentially, someone always knows someone who knows someone. It makes what is actually a very large community feel much smaller and more homey and welcoming. It's always joked that you never really leave, much like Hotel California, but it's true. And if you do, there's a good chance you're going to find your way back. And most importantly, no one will hold that against you. Westsiders don't leave because they like the way they were brought up. They want to bring up their families that way. They want to be close to home. They appreciate the sense of community and knowing generations of their neighbors. And if it's not broke, why fix it? So we talked about food and the sense of community, which brings me to my most important point. The West Side is laid back with a knack for finding life's simplest pleasures. What better way to make this point than with the advent of the game of cornhole? According to Mike Whitten, president of the American Cornhole Association, according to Mike Whitten, president of the Cornhole Association, cornhole was in fact invented and has its roots on the west side of town. the Westside is championed as the birthplace of what has nationally become a household name. And up until recently, you couldn't even get an Eastsider to say the word cornhole. And no game of cornhole would be complete without beer, which should actually be part of the official uniform of the game. Beer in one hand, bag in the other. Some people like to be wined and dined with Ritz and Glitz, but Westsiders keep it simple. Beer is the beverage of choice, and social drinking, whether at festivals, fish fries, or high school football games, or just any old backyard barbecue, is a given. And any old brew would do. Westsiders don't judge. So when you break it down, the advantages are a no-brainer. Who doesn't like feeling at home wherever they go? Raising their families with the friends they've known their entire lives, firing up the grill, playing cornhole, throwing back a few, whether at a church, parish, festival, fish fry, or just your best friend's backyard. There's a sense of community and loyalty you'd be hard-pressed to find elsewhere. And it's the driving force that keeps the Westside so close-knit. However, regardless, we can probably all stand united in our mutual dislike of the cities of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and St. Louis. Enough said. So maybe we aren't so different after all.